The United States Senate has announced a framework for new gun control. This really should be called Disarming America's Deplorables. I'm going to tell you why Republicans should not put their fingerprints on these gun control laws for constitutional reasons, public policy reasons, and yes, indeed, political reasons as well. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, constitutional attorney, best-selling author, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and most importantly, proud American gun owner. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. It really will make a difference to us and in support of our Second Amendment, which we all love. 10 Republican senators have announced that they've supposedly reached a framework of an agreement, which is like an agreement to agree. There's not an agreement, but some sort of an agreement to agree with Democratic leaders for new gun control laws. Now, apparently they all want to rush this through Congress before the 4th of July break. And they want to do it without robust committee hearings or any real debate. Why is this? Now, these Republicans have somehow concluded, as best I can tell, that targeting their political base of gun owners by taking away the fundamental constitutional right to keep and bear arms is somehow constitutional, smart public policy, and smart politics. I think this is just dumb on all accounts. To begin with, let's look at the centerpiece of this law. Well, the centerpiece of this law are these so-called red flag laws. But I want to be very clear about this, and I've told everyone that I've talked to, both on and off the record, even the press, the following. Red flag laws don't exist. Red flag laws are a euphemism for gun confiscation laws. Again, the anti-gun community is very good at propaganda terms, like they came up with gun violence, assault weapons, ghost guns. These are propaganda terms. They don't actually exist in the real world. Red flag laws are the same. Red flag laws are gun confiscation laws that target only a single class of Americans. Only one group of Americans, gun owners. Keep this in mind. If you don't own guns, so-called red flag laws don't apply to you. And the remedy at the end of a red flag law proceeding or gun confiscation proceeding, there's only one remedy that the court can do. And what is that? That's take the guns. So if it only applies to gun owners and the only remedy at the end of the case is not to award damages or not to put you in jail or anything like that, is to take your guns, well, seems like that's targeting American gun owners who, in my view, overwhelmingly, as best, not just my view, it seems to be based on facts, they tend to overwhelmingly vote in favor of Republicans and conservative economic and other policies. So why would Republicans, who theoretically are conservative, why would they want to touch this third rail and attack, essentially, their own base of voters? Makes no sense to me. Now, I want to also say the following. The thing you got to understand about these so-called red flag laws is how they work. And I'm going to be a little legal here, but it's not going to be that hard. Usually the way they work is this. Someone who doesn't like you thinks you're a threat or a danger to yourself or to someone else. They either call the police or they go to court themselves. But whether they go to the police or they go to court, somehow, some way, someone puts together a sworn statement in writing called an affidavit or an affirmation or a declaration. And they go to court and they say, we think you are a danger to yourself or to others. But here's the kicker. Did you know what? At this step in the proceeding, they never tell you about it. They're doing it behind your back. They go to court behind your back most of the time, if not always. And they say that you're a danger. And then they get a court order that they then walk over to your house. They knock on your door at 5 in the morning. Remember what they did to Roger Stone at 5 in the morning with the CNN helicopter there and all this other CNN cameras there and the helicopters and all this crazy guys with guns, and they look like they were ready for a battle in Iraq, and they're arresting like Roger Stone. I don't know Roger Stone. Don't have a particular view of the guy, but he's like an old guy that lived in Florida. I'm not quite sure they had this big rigmarole. But the point is they're going to show up with men with guns and all this crazy stuff at 5 in the morning with a red flag order, and they're going to say, give us your guns. Now, here's the thing. Your right to keep and bear arms is fundamental. In 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court said this in the case of McDonald versus Chicago. This means that the government cannot infringe on your right to keep and bear arms, even temporarily, without respecting due process protections. Those protections include, this is what due process basically means, that you're aware of someone trying to do something bad to you. You're given notice. They tell you about it. We're trying to take your money. We're trying to take your house. We're trying to take your guns. They give you notice. And then the second part is you have an opportunity to be heard, which means you have the right to argue against what they want. You want my money? No, I disagree. Here's why. You want them to steal my house? No, I disagree. Here's why. You want to take my guns? No, I disagree. Here's why. You're allowed to hire a lawyer or go in there yourself and argue. Cross-examine a witness. Use the right to lawyers. You can call relevant witnesses. Maybe take discovery. Get information that the other side has to show he's biased or she's biased, whoever swore they're complaining against you. Okay? And then, but that's not how it works, these so-called red flag laws. They go there behind your back, they get an order, then they take your guns. Now, they say that after they take your guns, then we give you a chance to get them back. Well, that's mighty nice of you. You've just stolen my guns at gunpoint at 5 a.m. with a raid based on a legal proceeding I wasn't even aware of. I had no opportunity to argue about. In fact, the state of Delaware, by the way, I should mention, I'll put this in a link, the state of Delaware, where Joe Biden's from, actually specifically says, unequivocally, a statement in the law, the red flag law of Delaware, that you have no right as a gun owner to be there at the emergency part of the hearing, the start of the hearing. It literally says that verbatim. Not my inference, statement in the law, in the statute itself. So then after they take your guns and you find out about it, right, you go get a lawyer, costs you a lot of money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if you're lucky. Then you got to hire a mental health expert because remember, that's all about, are you crazy? Are you mentally ill to the point where you're dangerous? Well, how do you rebut that? Well, I mean, yeah, you get a lawyer who's going to argue the case for you. You'll be there to say, I'm not crazy, I'm not dangerous. But you also, if you're smart, or if your lawyer is smart, will hire a mental health expert who will look at your medical records, look at your history, interview you, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, and put together a case that shows you're not crazy, and or you're not a danger to yourself, and or you're not a danger to others. This costs money because lawyers don't work for free, and mental health experts don't work for free. And this is all going to be put on you after, I repeat, after you've lost your guns. They're going to take your guns first, and they're going to be like, okay, we've taken your guns. Now we're going to tell you we took your guns. Well, yeah, you know, you were there at 5 a.m. taking my guns. And now you have an opportunity to be heard, but you've already kind of lost the case, right? The remedy at the end of the case is you don't have a right to guns, but you've already lost your guns. And now you got to fight to get them back. It's almost like you now have to prove that you're innocent. That's not how American justice is supposed to work. That's not how due process is supposed to work. Now, of course, let's also think about this and step back for a moment. We'll talk a little bit more about the process in a moment, but let's just think about this for a second. How crazy is the whole idea that all we want to do is take away guns from crazy people? Yeah, if you're crazy and dangerous, yeah, no one wants you to have a gun or anything else. But here's the kicker. Keep in mind that if someone poses a danger to others or themselves, but they don't have guns, so-called red flag laws aren't going to do anything to stop them from committing harm to themselves or others. I mean, someone who's really intent on killing can drive a truck into a crowd. This is what happened to at the Waukesha Christmas parade in Wisconsin, 2021. They can intentionally set a fire, like an arsonist, like the same arsonist who killed 87 people at a New York social club. They can use a truck bomb, like the extremist who killed 168 people in Oklahoma City. And did you know also, of course, that fists, hands, and feet kill far more people than all long guns combined? So to me, if you're too mentally ill and dangerous to touch firearms, maybe you're too mentally ill and dangerous to be out on the street at all. But the anti-gunners don't care about any of this. They don't care about mentally ill people out on the streets because I'm guessing 95%, in my opinion, 95% of the homeless people in places like New York City probably are mentally ill and should be put somewhere to get proper treatment and not left out on the street to do harm to themselves and others. But that's not what this is about, folks. These red flag laws have nothing to do, in my opinion, with public safety. It has everything to do with creating another system of law that's only going to harass law-abiding gun owners and people with angry neighbors and angry ex-spouses and angry ex-boyfriends and girlfriends or what neighbors or whatever it is, to use these laws as a weapon to punish people they don't like, including political enemies. The next thing I want you to keep in mind is that these red flag laws are really unnecessary. And why do I say that? You see, in 1968, Congress passed, and I've talked about this in other videos. In 1968, Congress made it unlawful for anyone who was adjudicated as a mental defective or who has been committed to a mental institution to possess firearms or ammunition. Again, this law passed in 1968, and the law is 18 U.S.C. 922 G4, for those geeks out there who want to know the site. Now, since that statute passed, courts across America have developed appropriate systems to provide for various forms of civil commitment and mental health hearings and protections, but they all include one critical thing. They all include due process protections. You can't just lock someone up. You can't take away their home. You can't take away their car. You can't take away their money. And you should not be allowed to take away their guns without proper due process protections. And again, due process has two parts. You know about it, meaning you're given notice that someone's trying to do bad to you. They're trying to do something, put you in jail, sentence you to death, take your guns, take your house, whatever it is, take your kids. You have to be given a notice to be fair, right? It's not fair to do it behind my back. You got to be given notice. And second of all, you have the right to confront your accusers and to make your case and to argue it. They can't do it by themselves without you. That's entirely unfair. It's like winning a football game where you don't even tell the other side where the game is being played or when it's being played. That's a very easy football game or any athletic event for the person that shows up to win, isn't it? The third point I want to make about red flag laws is they create a system that is ripe for abuse. Angry neighbors, ex-spouses, political enemies can exploit these laws, and the cost of the accusers is nothing. Keep in mind that the government encourages people all the time. You've seen it on the posters and bus stops, subway stations, on TV. If you see something, say something. This see something, say something concept came out of the post 9/11 American life, right? All brought to us by the government and PSAs. Now, this means that if someone is vindictive against you, they're simply going to say, look, yeah, I have an axe to grind, it's true, but in this case, I was just seeing something and saying something like I'm supposed to. Frankly, it's a very easy hurdle for them to say, look, I'm just telling the government what to do. I told the judge, and whatever happened, happened. I didn't care what happened. I was just trying to be a good citizen. And it's very easy for people, even liars, to get away with just saying, I was just doing the best I can as an ordinary citizen. And again, who's going to suffer from the system? There's only one group of people at the end of the day. In my view, ordinary gun owners, the deplorables for whom the left hates, are going to suffer the most. Because if a judge takes away your gun rights, it's going to cost you an enormous amount of money, time, and stress to try to prove your innocence and get your guns back. Lawyers and mental health testifying experts, as I've said before, are very expensive. In fact, the cost of the professionals that you hire might actually exceed the value of the firearms that you're trying to get back. And again, not everyone is rich. We know that, nearly half of Americans can't handle even a $500 emergency expense. And these are studies based on before the fact that gas prices have doubled and electricity prices have gone up 50%. And we're suffering through terrible inflation and a collapsing stock market, which hurts everyone's 401k plans, retirement funds, and savings. A total economic calamity. So this is all going to be harder to hire lawyers and professionals to try to defend your gun rights if somebody targets you. Now, we also know, based on studies by a scholar named David Coppell, that at least 1/3 of the time, these red flag orders that are initially ordered, taking away your guns, were wrongly granted. That's at least 1/3 of the time we know about. But in many instances, again, you may lose your guns, and the person just may roll over and say, I don't care about the guns. I can't afford to fight this. I don't have time to fight this. I've got other things to do. And they just let the government win because they can't afford to fight. Remember, these are civil cases. These aren't criminal cases. If you were charged with a crime and you might have to go to jail, then you have a constitutional right to be appointed a government paid for lawyer if you can't afford it. But these red flag laws, so-called red flag laws, which are really gun confiscation laws, are civil in nature. You're not going to go to jail. Why is this so important? Because there's no risk of you going to jail, because it's a civil matter and not a criminal case. It means that you have no constitutional right for the government to pay for your lawyer if you can't pay for one. So if you can't pay for a lawyer, you are SOL. You're out of luck. There's nothing you can do. Now, we also know, in addition to the fact that red flag laws are unnecessary, is that any real criminal or person that wants to do terrible things, psychopaths, mass murderers in waiting, they can always hide guns, right? They don't have to comply with the order, or they can murder people with other tools. We've just talked about that, and that, of course, can happen with, people aren't going to follow red flag laws any more than they follow other gun control laws if they're evil people intent on doing harm. And I think the last public policy argument against red flag laws, so-called red flag laws, is that it seems to me that this is really a PR discussion going on right now to distract Americans from what seems to be government incompetence in Uvalde, Texas. Now, I don't know all the details down in Uvalde, Texas. They're still coming to light. But it seems odd that this shooter in Uvalde, Texas appears to have been outside the school shooting all around the school for at least 10 minutes or so. And then he gets in through an unlocked door. Now, whether that door was unlocked because someone forgot to lock it or because the door was broken, meaning somebody working for the government didn't fix it or didn't make sure it was working. Now, whether it be a teacher, whether it be an administrator, a janitor, a police officer, I don't know. But whoever, for whatever reason, that outdoor back door that the shooter got into in Uvalde, Texas, was not locked. Now, that is incompetence on the part of someone. I don't know who it was, but someone, whether it was the person that was responsible for fixing the door and didn't fix it, whether it's the person responsible for shutting the door and then shut it, I don't know. But that is not how it was supposed to work. Beyond that, here's what I'm still trying to figure out. Why were the inside doors to the school not locked? I mean, we seem to know that the shooter was outside the school for over 10 minutes shooting. You would think that someone would have alerted the school and the school would have locked down and set aside going into the outdoor door that got into the inside of the school. Why weren't the classroom doors on lockdown and shut? And we know they worked because once the shooter got in those classrooms, he shut the door behind him and the police say they couldn't get in because it was locked and hard to get into. Well, why weren't they shut ahead of time? Somebody should have alerted the teachers that there was a shooter outside and they should go into lockdown. And the teachers should have shut the doors behind them so that the shooter couldn't have gotten into these classrooms inside the building. But again, we don't know what's going on, but it certainly looks to me, from my reading of the media reports, that there was some government incompetence here, and these discussions of red flag laws seem to be distracting from government incompetence and the reality of what we talk about in this channel all the time. You are your own first responder. The police, the emergency department, the fire department, they're not first responders. They're second and third responders. You have to be responsible for your own safety because you're going to be there first when you deal with the criminal, and the police at best will show up second or third. And my last point is, this is really a political argument. Now, I'm not a political consultant or a genius like Karl Rove or all these other fancy people that give advice to politicians. That's not what I do. But I am going to make an observation. There's an old maxim in life and in investing that goes like this. It said, the trend is your friend. The trend is your friend. Now, what this means is if the trend is going in your favor, don't mess up the trend. Go with the trend. Well, it seems to me, based on all the evidence, that Republicans seem to be trending favorably for the 2022 midterm elections. The trend seems to be their friend. So why on earth would any Republicans, even squishy ones, want to do anything to disrupt this trend? Why would you needlessly anger your base, especially when gun owners seem to be getting nothing out of this? I mean, why are the Republicans trying to give up red flag laws and encourage that with subsidies and not get anything out of it? Like, I don't know, removing suppressors from the NFA, from allowing nationwide concealed carry reciprocity across state lines, or making sure that all states respect the right of teachers to carry guns and be trained to protect their classrooms in the event that a crazy person tries to shoot up the school. If assume the teacher wants to take on that responsibility, why not make sure they are properly trained with the proper equipment? Seems like a negotiation is I give up something, you give us something, we meet in the middle, we both are better off. I'm not sure that's happened in the United States Senate, but I guess only time will tell. Okay, I hope you learned something here at the Four Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And again, we'll see you soon here at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.